Well, welcome everybody to the circulation interest group, and I actually point out the agenda at the beginning of the month, or the end of last month, and totally forgot about it. But I did pull it up, and we had a few questions. But right off the bat, did anybody have any questions or want to say hello? Haven't been to this meeting before, want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Georgette Rogers. I'm from the Liberty Lake Library in Washington State. And I didn't know about the group until yesterday at the KOHA meeting. So I joined. So here I am, just kind of to see what all is happening and what we're doing.
Oh, nice to meet you, Georgette. I'm just gonna warn you guys, and we've got renovation going on, so I'm gonna try and cut my mic when the loud stuff starts going on, but it's iffy. So
I'm Wendy Sharkey from Bennington, Vermont. This is the first meeting I've also attended. So
welcome. Thanks for coming.
Oh gosh, I can't remember your name. From Bedford. You're muted right now. We can't hear you.
Hi, I'm Mary from Bedford. We're having some trouble with our notifications. It seems like in the last, I don't know, couple months, more and more of our patrons are saying they're not getting their notifications. We used to have talking tech for phone notifications. We have text messaging and email messages, and people are saying that they aren't getting their emails. And what I think is happening is that they're, because we send out a lot, and not all of the messages or notifications are digested, we get marked as spam. So we spoke to our IT department and thought if we had a mailbox where the email messages could get bounced back to us, we would know that they didn't get their notification, but it's not working. And I wondered if anybody else had any ideas or had any experience with people having a lot of trouble getting the notifications lately.
Well, at PCCLD, we actually seen that same problem, although recently I haven't heard that complaint in a while. I noticed that it was a lot, we were having a lot with Hotmail and MSN, but like Yahoo and Gmail was working pretty well.
We were just the opposite. We were having trouble with Gmail, and it finally got straightened out. We do a special email that they come to as well, but yeah, ours was Gmail. It's been fixed though, apparently.
Okay.
And Mary, are you guys a Bywater customer?
Yes.
My experience has been that when Bywater moved everybody from Rackspace to Amazon Web Services, that's when this started to happen. And I don't think there's anybody from Bywater here today, but I have an open ticket with them because we're talking about moving our outgoing email from one server to a different server, so that the outgoing email will be coming from a different IP. Looks like Ed's going to pipe in and say something here.
Yeah, Mitch and I were talking about that last night, and there's not an easy solution to it, but there are still some Bywater people here. I would open up a ticket to address it. Yeah.
we were having the same problems, and Bywater fixed them. We just sent them all the email addresses that were being bounced, and they did their whatever their thing is.
Yeah. Because it's because what they're gonna do is fix it based on who it's going to. So, yeah, they're gonna fix it for Hotmail.
So Wendy, you actually got some bounced emails back?
Yes, and we got some with spurious messages on, which I can't actually remember what the messages were at the moment, but that was something to do with Amazon themselves, and had nothing to do with the addresses that they were being sent to. But we've had the issue started right from the start, and on a regular basis we have to be whitelisted with various companies. I don't know.
Yeah, I vaguely remember we were getting some warning or some bounce backs, and it was, I think it mentioned Amazon, but it did have kind of a weird message on it. But there are ones that just, they go out and the users checks their spam mail or spam folders, and they just do not get the email at all. So. Anybody else seeing anything, or anybody else want to do any introductions?
This is Victor. Hello, everyone. First time in the conference. I have to say it has been a great couple of days, a lot of great content. I'm all the way in Fort Collins, Colorado, and we unfortunately are not using Koha as our main ILS right now, but we have a sister library partnership with a small library all the way in Nicaragua. And so we have been providing support to them and, trying to stay up to date on the latest features and settings for Koha. So thank you.
Oh, nice to meet you. Welcome to the interest group.
I was going to say that Bob mentioned in the chat box that he said that they went through a process where they had to verify with Amazon the emails. And we did this too, where Bywater had, I think it was mostly Todd would send an email through some Amazon verification, and then the library would have to go in and respond to that, and then that allowed Bywater to make some other setting on the Amazon Web Services, and that was particularly difficult for us because with 52 libraries, that had to be done once for each library that was using a different email address. I think it was about 40 of those that we had to deal with. So, and that helped, but we still have had some problems.
It was a really good test of our libraries though. Like those messages look like spam. So they deleted them, which made it really hard to like complete the process, but it made us feel good that we're teaching them to avoid things that they shouldn't click on in their emails. Because we're in the same situation. We have 48 libraries and they each had to like authorize their email address. So that for us, that helped as well. Most of the bounces I get now are bad email addresses, bad phone numbers, that sort of thing. But every once in a while, I'll get one that just says email wasn't sent, and that's the error message, and there's nothing to go off of. So we still have sporadic problems, but it's not as bad as it once was.
All right. Anybody else wants to introduce themselves?
I'll go.
Cool.
Hi, my name is Ashley Johnson, and I am from Jackson County Library Services in Southern Oregon. This is the first time that I've been to a conference, as we are a brand new Koha library. We migrated from Polaris in April, and this is our first opportunity. We are also with Bywater Solutions, and I've been enjoying the conference and making connections and feeling part of a community, which is something that's very, very new for us. We were actually, not only were we a Polaris library, but we were hosted or part of LS&S. I'm not sure if anybody has heard of LS&S libraries, but they are a company that runs libraries. So they have, I forget how many libraries, 50 libraries or so throughout the United States. And then, so they hosted Polaris, we hosted through them. So we were like 2 layers away from our ILS for any question. So being here is really exciting to be a part of. And there's a couple coworkers I think on with me as well. So just wanted to say hey.
Cool, welcome. All right, if there aren't any other people want to introduce themselves, I've got some questions from Lauren that I'm not sure if she's got an answer to them yet, but we can definitely explore them here. The first one is, actually, I'd like to know this as well. Can you send notices directly through a report? I'm guessing this is probably a George question.
There's a plugin for that, right, George?
Yes, there is. Yeah, and I think Ed wants to say something about it. I've only used it a couple of times, but Ed ran up to that camera pretty fast. So I think he must know.
I don't want to say anything about it, but I can say something about it. Yeah, you run a report and Bywater will set up a cron job based on how often you want to have the report run, and you'll create a notice in your notices. It'll grab that notice text and email it out. That's basically how it works.
But how does it work for Lauren, who doesn't have Bywater?
The same way, except you don't get Bywater to create the cron job for you. You can install the plugin. It's publicly available. You can then, if you have access to the command line, then you set up the cron job, pointing it to all the different pieces. There's documentation out there for it. I don't have it at my fingertips, but I'll bet there are other people in the community, and I can help you try to find that documentation to try to get it to work without having to have Bywater. It's the patron emailer or something like that.
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm looking for the link for it right now.
So if you're talking about the batch patron emailer tool, I use that quite a lot, but I've never used it. I usually pull the information about the users from a report that Bywater gives us and then uploads it to a tool. But yeah,
I guess you can do all that through a cron job.
Yeah.
Somebody just put the GitHub link.
Yeah, I was just about to say I put the GitHub link to the plugin in the chat box. So if you're in the Zoom room, it's in the chat box there.
And honestly, Lauren, the second question you had was about sending a follow-up email about a consortium and the local library joining. I'd actually use that tool as well. If you still have those patron records from the import, you can probably just pull what you need from them and put it into the report that grabs all their email addresses and then just upload it to that tool.
My problem with the tool is it's not HTML friendly. It is only text. So you can't make the emails really pretty.
My problem with the tool is that I have libraries that if they, I've disabled it, most people can't use it. But I have libraries that will use it. I had one library that wanted to create a mailing list. They wanted to get the patrons' birth dates and email addresses from Koha and then send them a happy birthday notice every year. And I had to explain to them that, this is not a typical use of email. It doesn't have anything to do with the library business. So what you're doing is actually a violation of the CAN-SPAM Act. And so that's something that I would be careful about if you're thinking about just finding a way to extract your patrons' email addresses and start emailing them, is make sure that it's for legitimate library business and not, and that it can't be construed as spam.
Yeah, so it's a lot like, Spider-Man, great power comes great responsibility. So, and this is just in the email form. So we had a bad experience with that, with our emails actually getting backed up to the point where it was sending like 6 or 7 of these emails out because of something that went down with the web server or the email server that Bywater was hosting. So yeah, definitely be careful with it. So the third question you had was, is there a way to run a report that includes all the data in the patron's record, sort address, sort one, phone? Yeah, you can pull that through a report pretty easily. Just select on the browser or the borrower, sorry.
Yeah, so that goes back to our schema conversation from earlier. So if you look up the borrowers table in the schema, you can pick out which fields you want to put into your report.
Yeah, I was going to try and share my screen, but unfortunately something's going on with our network and everything's kind of grinding to a halt.
I just realized I hadn't made you co-host either. So I did that in case it helps. It won't help your network issues, but maybe, you know, a little magic there.
Yeah, you've got the robot voice right now, so it's pretty bad.
Beep bop boop. Does anybody else want to jump in and show Lauren how to do a simple borrowers report? Might be helpful for others as well. Can do it in our demo server. No takers. No one wants to be on camera writing reports. I get it.
I'm kind of reported out for the day.
I don't know. I guess, Lauren, do you need us to walk through that, or do you think you can get it?
I think I can get it.
Okay. If
Or
you
figure it
can't,
out.
we're here for the rest of the week and we can definitely break out room a report and try and get it refined to what you need. Unless others in the group right now want to try and dig into that.
Yeah, I'll find out how much I actually learned from George's talk. It's my homework.
Sounds good. I didn't pull up the agenda. Daniel, are you leveling off or?
We should have Lauren share her screen and just watch her work her way through it.
We can all be backseat report writers while she.
Yep.
No, don't put that code there.
I think it would be torture for you. It'd be like pulling teeth. Takes me so long. Okay, where is that? What do I do?
But it'll be great television. That's what we're here for, right? All right, Daniel's sharing now. I don't know if that's the one he initiated like 2 minutes ago or if he's actually back.
All right, can you see my screen?
Yeah, it looks good.
Okay.
Cool. Oh, you do have the Zoom stuff's kind of covering up stuff. If you just condense the video window down to nothing, that should show us most everything.
Yeah. So the fourth question is it possible to have something set up that allow you to check out, not check in? I have a library that wants a self-checkout machine, but they want to do one to check in material. Be a check. Has anybody worked with the self-check or the self-check-in machine? Oh no, not to check in. Wow.
So are we talking about Koha's native self-checkout, self-check-in module, or are we talking about like a third-party thing?
They want a way to allow patrons to check out their materials, but then the library staff checks in all the materials.
The checkout and check-in are separate. you should be able to turn one on and the other off.
Yeah, you could turn off the check-in component on a Koha self-check. That's how we have ours run.
How?
It's a system preference. I'm putting it in the chat.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think the default is set to don't allow.
So I'm guessing they're not using like the self-check machine from say 3M or Biblioteca, right?
They used to have ResourceMate, and they joined our consortium, so now we're using Koha. And it's the first library that is using Koha for self-check-in. Everybody else is well, a lot of the people who don't have staff are using cards. They're still using paper.
You have more than one library?
Yes.
Okay, so if one library is depending on that, the self check-in, it's on for all libraries or on or off for all libraries. I don't think you can specify a specific library. You'd have to use a third-party self-check software in order to be able to do something like that nature. So if you're using this self-check-in at some libraries, then I would say the libraries that don't want that self-check-in, you probably need a third party. We use an open source one. It's if you Google open source self-check, Eric Melton, that's what we've used. We've used that for years. And we use that because we don't have to do a login on the machine for it to connect, which has been nice. As one of the things that we had to work around with the Koha self-check, the Koha self-check. But we've been using that for years, and it's worked really well.
I've got a couple of libraries that are using the built-in Koha self-checkout, and I don't have anybody that's using the self-check-in. But aren't the self-checkout and the self-check-in, they're different pages? So, it's not like if you turn on self-check-in that you have to put a machine and have that running on it.
Are they separate pages? They don't link to each other?
I believe they are. I'm trying to find
they are totally independent of each other.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought. So it should not be difficult to set that up. I think they just probably need a little bit of help doing that. I know I did find Bywater did in 2016 a blog post on setting up self-checkout. I don't know if they've ever done one on self-check-in, but I just put a link to the Bywater post about setting up the self-checkout feature. And I'll look to see if there's one for self-check-in.
Yeah, we've got the self-checkout that we're using. We're not using the self-check-in right now. We're considering using it in special cases, but we don't have a problem with the self-checkout with all of our multiple stations and 2 locations.
So those 2 links I just put in the chat, the first one is to a Bywater education blog post about self-checkout. And the second one is a Monday Minutes video about the self-check-in module. And I found if you, I just had it a second ago. The self-checkout module, that's the system preference that has the link to the self-checkout module. And this one is for the self-check-in module. So those are the 2 system preferences that control that. And one of them, the address is CGI bin Koha SCI main page. And the other one is SEO main PL. So they are two different things. So you should be able to run one. You should be able to turn the system preferences on for both of them, and just don't use the one you don't want to use in the library where you don't want to use it.
Okay.
Yeah, and what you do have to be careful of, I think this was Christopher's thing, is they've got to have a user that they log in as, and that user has to be set up to have permissions to check out. And that user has to be associated with that particular location. Otherwise, it's going to look like something's checked out from someplace else. Did that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. We have logins based on the actual self-check workstation that identifies which station it was. It logs in with this one user, so we know which machines are used the most, which ones aren't, all of that kind of stuff.
Great, thanks a lot. Does anybody else have any questions or anything they would like to bring up?
I'm not sure how this works. Am I supposed to type it, raise my hand, to speak up?
Just shout out. We're very lax right here.
So one thing we noticed, it's been an ongoing issue for our library, is when we migrated over, we've had tons of problems circulating around notifications. Hold notifications, pre-dues, renewals. It's like everything that has to do with the notification has been an issue. It used to be when we were used to in Polaris, which we'd been with Polaris for 20 years, it was the only thing anybody had been used to for a long time, was that the patrons had one option to pick their format, and all of their notifications came to them in that one format. So if they picked text, they got text for everything. If they picked phone, they got phone for everything. But the way that Koha is designed, we have, of course, the library settings for, you know, long overdues or lost items or when they get charged, versus like the circulation features that patrons have some control over. We noticed that some are digested, some are not digested, and that a lot of our patrons are used to mail. We live in a very rural area with a high senior population, so they like getting their notifications the old school way. So the trick is to not have boxes ticked at all so that it forces a mail notification. So I mean, there's just a lot of workarounds and separations. Notifications just seem very complicated to us coming into it. So I'm curious, is there conversation about like working on development for notifications, trying to come up with a better way? What are other libraries doing? Are we just, I mean, it's totally possible we're just really strange and we're the only ones that are encountering these issues. I just like to hear how other people, if you've had problems with notifications, patron feedback, and what you kind of found that might work. If there's a bug I can support with some funds, we're willing to do that, you know, some direction.
Well, we've had a lot of trouble with notifications, and I think I understand. So you're saying, like, can they have a way to determine, say they get their overdues through text and they get their on holds through email? And
yeah, well, if, like, for instance, if they only want to get a phone notification only. If we tick phone notification for the library determined stuff, for the lost, long overdue, those ones where they get billed, then they get a phone call for every item. And if they've checked out 60 items, they get 60 phone calls at the same time slamming their phone, or they get 60 text messages or whatever. So we have a lot of patrons that were like, no, we don't want that. Or some patrons that don't want anything. They never want to hear from the library ever, but they have to get something. They have to get an email, they have to get a piece of mail, they have, like, there's no setting to turn it off.
Yeah,
Rena, if you're here and can jump in with anything to help me, I would appreciate it.
I know that the renewals, we have auto renewals, and that has been kind of a sticky thing where it'll renew and it'll send email after email after email of all the items that have been renewed, and we wanted it in digest, and I think that's a work in progress. We have ITVA's talking tech, or ITVA, and it sends an email or a phone notification, and it's just one, and it will tell them, if I'm remembering correctly, it'll tell them which ones they have on that are available and what are overdue in one phone notice, unless it's like another day, and then another couple of items become overdue. Then it'll send another phone notification. But
was there something particular you had to set up to get that digested?
Honestly, no. I thought it was just a basic setup for.
Because it's not working that way for us. So I'm wondering if there's something we missed.
Did you guys, you have TechLod or ITVA?
We did. We went with ITVA for phone.
So one thing that I love to do as a Bywater customer is find someone like Daniel, usually it's George for me, and say, hey, Bywater, this works exactly how I want it for Daniel. Why isn't it working for me? Can you look at his settings and make my settings work like his settings? Okay. And then they can look into it and figure out exactly how to get that meshing.
Okay, I will take a look at that.
I would, yeah, really be careful, because our settings are really weird on ITVA. We just had like a couple of months worth of headache trying to fix an issue with it. So just how the phone goes out, not how we set it up. Just be warning about that.
So like for instance, again, we're coming from another library system. I realize it's different, but what our patrons were used to hearing on a phone notice was they would get a phone call that said, you have holds, or you have items that you've requested that are waiting. And then like the system would say it's X amount of items. So if you had 10 waiting, it would say you have 10 items waiting for you at this branch or whatever, instead of reading a list of titles or, you know, whatever the other options are. Is there a way to throw into the language of that phone message a sum number of whatever is waiting, or is that just not how things are built?
I'm totally ignorant on ITVA and stuff, but do you guys set that up in the templates? Because if you do, you may be able to do something with template toolkit. Because is that how that works, Daniel? Is that notice that the phone actually speaks coming from Koha's notices section?
From what I remember, it's just a generic, you have to call this person is sent to ITVA, and ITVA generates the message based on the settings that you have in ITVA. You know, I honestly don't remember if it says, you know, you have like 6 books on hold at this location.
So it sounds like maybe I could work with ITVA on that directly.
Yes.
Okay, and I wasn't the person who set that up, but our assistant director at the time did it. So maybe I should just reach out to ITVA and see if that's.
Yeah, they've actually, their tech support has gotten a bit better. It was really bad in the beginning of this year and the end of last year. And actually, you know, it's been bad for about a year, so.
Okay, I will reach out. I'm just curious, like, is this kind of a non-issue for everybody else? Like, nobody's really worried about notifications? So funny. I wondered if it was just us.
No, I totally get what you're saying. How there's like 2 different places you change settings, and it could be better for sure. Ed is raising his hand, so I'm gonna.
Yeah, a lot of us don't use ITVA or telephone stuff, so that's why we were quiet during a lot of that. Make sense?
So you're just using email and SMS?
Email, SMS. I don't think. Yeah, we do. We have a report that runs for those. We literally have a few people that insist on being called. And we have a report, we put a comment in an authorized value in their record, and it pops up for their holds. They're on a report, and we call them twice a week because it's literally under 10 people. It's not a problem. Most people are happy with the email, SMS. I even had a situation 9 months ago. This elderly lady came in, was on her, complaining about not getting a notice. She didn't know about her hold. It was a very, one of those conversations. We all have them. In the middle of this conversation, her cell phone goes off and she looks at it, and it was a text, and she starts texting with somebody going on. And I finally said, hold on, would you like us to text you about the holds? Yes, that'd be great. So I set her up for that, and that's working fine for her. Not something somebody thought about mentioning to her when she registered. So yeah, there are a lot of solutions.
Okay.
So
We've done a big push trying to get emails, to get our patrons to give us an email. But something about the culture of the area, like there's just a high percentage of people who do not want to ever have an email created, have no use for it, and refuse to do it. So maybe going the SMS route instead of pushing email might be.
We have a very high elderly population who have never had an email in their lives. And so when a hold is generated and we see that it's got a phone number, they get a phone call from us, not through the system, but from us.
Gotcha.
And because hopefully there's not too many holds in any one day, we can remember who's got them and group them together. So they'll get one call to say, you've got 3 books ready for you now. And then any bounce backs we get from the automatic overdue notices, we send out paper copies to those patrons. But we don't, the only person that gets text messages in the whole system for us is myself, because I was testing it out.
Gotcha.
Majority of our libraries, we send out emails and text messages. We have 4 out of the 27 libraries that was doing ITVA, and they're actually dropping it because it was overpriced and wasn't working for a majority of the year that they've been paying for it. And it was a nightmare to try and keep working, even with Bywater's help on it. It was an absolute nightmare. We've actually been investigating and pricing things out, and it looks like Twilio offers the same kind of service, but Twilio.
I totally apologize. It's Twilio. That's who we went with.
All right, yeah.
I didn't set it up. I was just in on the, we looked at everybody. It's Twilio. That's who we're with.
Twilio is much less expensive, and they have other options as well. But we'd like to go to Twilio. One of the issues that we're running into right now is currently there is a bug in the emails, and I don't know if this was mentioned earlier. I jumped in late here, but there's a bug in the notifications where notifications are going out as the patron's home library instead of the library that's actually sending the notification, which is really weird. So it makes it difficult for us to track which, how many notices a particular library is sending. Because if we want libraries, if only some libraries are going to do phone notifications, we need to be able to track what libraries are sending out messages through phone and how many. And right now that information is skewed because it's going out as the home library of the patron, not the library that's sending that notification. So really sticky there. And we're hoping that bug will be fixed, because we're also looking at Twilio for SMS, because Koha's built-in SMS could be going away because
Yeah.
of the limitations that they're putting on emails to text. So
I think that was why we ended up going Twilio as well, is that looming change. And we heard good things about Twilio from Bywater. So I think that's what we ended up doing. Now that you said Twilio, it clicked in my brain. Oh yeah, that's not what we did.
yeah, they look pretty solid.
So I have a Twilio question while we're on the subject. So you're already using Twilio text messaging.
Yes.
What happened?
Oh, no, not text messaging.
Not just
No,
phone.
we went with Twilio in anticipation of having to add text.
We're in the process of switching to Twilio for text messaging, but I've been a little busy, so I haven't made that switch yet. But I guess if anybody out there is using Twilio, I'd be curious to know how you have your reply settings set up. Like, do you have it set up so that if a patron replies, does that go somewhere? Does it just drop off the face of the earth? Yeah, I'm going to test that on our test server before we go live with it. I know that Twilio has a lot of stuff you can do with it. You can create web routes, and we can probably set it up so that it does go somewhere, but there's a charge associated with receiving text as well as sending text. So we've only really priced out the sending of text because that's what we can see in Koha. So I'm a little nervous about how many replies we're actually getting and if that's going to blow our costs at all. So if anybody has experience with text and with Twilio text specifically, how do you handle replies? And if no one has experience with that, I will be diving in later this month in October, probably, to poke around. I'm not seeing anybody jumping up to answer my question, so I will let you know what I find out.
We'll be watching
Jason,
that presentation.
Can I ask a question of the group? Is anyone using anything other than Itiva or Twilio?
For phone messages specifically, or text?
Or for anything, for any messaging?
We just use, right now we're just using Koha, so I don't have any other. Bob in chat says they use Shoutbomb. Oh, we did have kind of a conversation about other text service providers at a general meeting or somewhere. I know Rhonda said she uses Red something. Do you know, Christopher?
What was the question?
Other text service providers or phone service providers for notices besides Twilio and Itiva. I know we talked about it.
Not off the top of my head. Those are the two primary ones that I've been hearing about.
Twilio is the one that gets thrown around the most, just because I know that Kyle has experience working with them, and it works well with Koha. I mean, the way their system works meshes with Koha really well, and it's an easy transition. And it's affordable I mean, we're a consortium, so we looked at some different things, and it was definitely the best bang for our buck, for sure.
We just have a staff person that calls.
We currently use UMS or unique management for our mailings, but they were also on the list of options we looked at for phone notifications. I think they're more expensive, but.
Yeah, we're currently partnering with them to launch all of our notices, email, text, and phone through the MessageBee product that UMS has. I think we're going to be the first Koha library that they've worked with for all three. I think that sounds right, because it's been we've been working on it for over a year. Not ready yet, but getting closer by the day. So I'm excited to see when this is finally up and running, how this is going to work out. But we're starting with email, then we'll add in text messaging, and then eventually, probably in 2023, late 2022, we'll add phone messages, because we don't have phone messages right now.
And I guess I can mention, we're the same as Georgette. We have a, our libraries just call people if we need to make a phone call. We've tried to create the sort of hierarchy. So we need your email address. That's going to be the best because that saves staff time and is automatic and all that stuff. And then yes, we can send you texts. And if you aren't keen on either of those things, then we default to the phone call or the mailed letter. So we've never approached the subject of automated phone calls.
So we of course have ITIVA, and we were looking at a different text messaging service. I heard of Shoutbon and it totally went out my head. So I guess I'll look into it a little bit, but we were actually having the same problems with some emails that we were having with texts that they were just not, they were being blocked by the provider. So that's why we were looking at the new text. We also, when we were having the trouble with ITIVA, we were thinking about Twilio, but it sounds like, you know, Twilio's got its own kind of issues. And ITIVA, for the most part, it works when it's up and running. It just, sometimes it comes down and it has trouble communicating with Koha.
Just to be clear, we haven't had any problems with the service actually working. It's just, it's not doing what we want it to do. And I'm not sure if that's our settings or like we didn't finish setting up with them, or, you know, something's missing in between maybe. So I will reach out to Twilio and see, but the service itself has worked very well, very dependably.
That's good. Yeah, the only complaint we had from is either I don't receive my phone call or the person's not pronouncing something right on the phone with ITIVA, which is kind of funny.
Our patrons think the voice is creepy. And I'm just like, I've listened, I don't think it's creepy at all, but.
Yeah, I recorded my wife recorded a message for our closure, and we tacked it on the end of the phone notification, and people complained about how she pronounced library. Really random. But does anybody else have any topics they would like to talk about?
Thank you for all that, by the way.
Oh no,
Is it
were they
appropriate
saying
to-
library? Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, library. Is this appropriate time to do shameless bug promotion?
Absolutely.
Okay, I have a bug. I'll put the link in the chat. It's to cancel a pending notice. So our notices are set. We've asked, we're a Bywater customer. I'm in Arlington, Virginia Public Library. We've asked Bywater to hold our notices in the queue and send them once a day for us at 8 o'clock in the morning. And sometimes our queue is so large with all the notices we have that sometimes I don't get them till 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening. We're working on that, but so what we'd like to do is find a way to be able to cancel a pending notice before it gets sent. The patron, you know, like if you have a book and you check it in and you trap the hold and then the notice is generated and sitting there in the queue, and then you realize something's wrong with the book, like it has, you know, it's goo on it or something, you didn't catch it, and then you want to get rid of it and give them a new copy and replace their hold for them. There's no way to cancel that notice. So I created a bug. It's the first bug I created, so I hope I did it right. Asking for comments, and we'd like to be able to just like have a button there that says if it's pending, just cancel it, and maybe keep a log of like, I don't know, which staff member did it or something. So thank you very much.
Does anybody know if a message is pending, does it change from pending to sent as soon as it goes off, as soon as the server sends it, or is that status changed when it gets some sort of confirmation back?
My understanding of those statuses on the notices tab is it's whenever there's no like feedback. Like if it says sent, it means the cron job sent it and that's it. Like there's no confirmation back that it actually got sent, right? So I would guess it's whenever that actually sends. So like that time between pending and sent is in theory a window you could cancel. cancel the notice. I think that's a great idea, by the way, and your bug looks great. So I'm gonna CC myself on it.
Agreed, it's brilliant. I'll put myself on that as well.
Rebecca, just out of curiosity, why, did I understand correctly? You said you have Bywater sending your email messages at a specific time rather than throughout the day. Why do you have them build up like that?
Well, it started because of the pandemic. So we only had a Holds pickup location, and they were taking 24 hours to get from the processing part to the actual shelf where they would pick them up. So we didn't want the notices going out and having people coming in the time when they weren't physically available for pickup. So we went live during the pandemic. So it's all been a learning curve for us. And then our old system, we were on Sierra before we came over, and we had notices once a day. So it's kind of just the norm for us. So yeah, the pandemic was the main reason though, because we didn't want, I think it runs every 15 minutes or something like that. So yeah, we were trying to keep patrons from coming in the building if we could.
Got it. Yeah, normally it would be recommended to let your email server send them out on a regular basis. I think ours go out, well, out of the box, I think it was like when they set us up, it was every hour, but I think we went down to every 15 minutes notices are sent out, just so that, we're not taxing the server on sending all those out and we aren't looking like, we're spamming. I think there's some logistics about doing that throughout the day rather than one big blast. But I do see I do understand the reason while you were closed. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, we had throttle issues, and so we've had them time it so that I think 60 or cent a minute or something like that. So it's not quite so, spam. It's not all one big blast. It's like little trickles. But we run into the problem with that. It takes all day sometimes to get our notices out. So we have them in, we reorder the priority. So like the hold pickup notices are the first things. And then we had, I think like the overdues are next, and then the auto renewals. But having a digest option for all of those would be great, because the one-offs are really, that's what kills us.
There's also we've been having a problem, or we've always had a problem of the notices going out and the material not being on the shelf, and having the user come in and say, where's my stuff? And having like a delay is something I can't remember if there was a way to do that, or if there was somebody looking into it, but just having that kind of delay before the message is kicked out would be also pretty cool. Not only canceling the hold, but it actually give you some time to cancel that notice. Sorry.
I think Koha just needs to have an app that we can push notifications to. That'd be so nice.
Dream.
I will say that is one thing I miss about Sierra. We had the ability to run our notices. The cron ran it for us, or we could set the cron to what time we wanted, so we could stagger it, and then we could also run them manually. So it would be nice if we could have that kind of flexibility.
There's another bug out there. I think Barbara maybe wrote it up for like an interface for, I just see she put something in the chat. It might be the one, an interface for cron jobs, and like actually being able to see those settings and maybe eventually having control over that on the librarian side of things. That would be perfect as well. And maybe this could be an added thing where you have the choice to push the button and make it go yourself. I was gonna say, I didn't get to see Christopher Zorn's presentation on the app that they've created. I didn't know if anybody else had seen that and can report back if he's got push notifications figured out yet.
He does not.
He does not. Darn. All right, something to work on though. That would be very exciting if we could just do away with the whole text component entirely and just do our messaging through an app. Then we don't have to worry about T-Mobile blocking our messages and stuff like that.
All right. Okay, finished. Does anybody else have any questions?
Oh, I just clicked Barbara's bug and it's not the same. So this one is adding a configurable time delay to notice templates. So she's talking about actually having control over the delay when you're setting up each individual notice. So that's also a very nice idea.
Yeah. So as you know, we were thinking about switching over, trying to switch our users over from emails to our phone to emails. And we do have like an old population. And has anybody had any experience with doing that as a project? So it might be something that we might be doing next year.
Can you elaborate? As far as
so we have a real blue collar, and most of them use phones, and I'm trying to get them so that they can, instead of using the phone notification, going to the email. And wow, something just came through the roof. And just seeing how people did that. Has anybody had any experience in getting their users to transition from phone notification over to emails?
I see. So like campaigns you may have done to kind of shift people.
Yeah, sorry, I'm a little distracted.
It's okay.
When we first joined Koha, we every time a patron comes around for renewal on their card, which they have to renew them every year, we always ask them if they have an email address to add to it. We explain that it makes life easier and that they get all these magic notifications. And sometimes they're persuaded, but not always. But as far as a campaign, we've never done a campaign for that.
We did a campaign many years ago and put the emails on the email sign up information on the checkout receipts, and also on our website and on the catalog search. So when you looked at OPAC, you'd see it. And then also we found a huge uptick in email registration when we turned it on in self-reg. So when they made their own cards online, they were adding their email. We got a lot of email addresses that way. And when patrons could go and look at their account, they could see that they could add an email field. So a lot of them did it that way too.
Fred, we can't hear you.
Sorry, I have turned off at the headset as well. Looks like you can hear me now, except it's a nice sunny day here. Anyway, in our library, your name and phone number and email address are required, though if they don't have one, we can just sort of fudge a little. But then we're dealing with medical residents and nurses, so they're used to giving all sorts of information.
It looks like we are just about at time for circulation. We'll be moving on to cataloging next. I'm hopefully Daniel still has hearing, but I'm excited, and I hope that he's excited that we've had so much conversation and participation. Circulation is a SIG that needs more people, so I'm happy to see people here. I hope that we can continue these conversations in the future. We do have monthly meetings and a mailing list, as I mentioned earlier in the day. Each SIG has their own mailing list, Google group, and regularly scheduled Zoom meetings. So if you're not on the list, please join those. And if you can join us next month, we can sort of continue these conversations. I think notices is a big thing that we could work on as a group, trying to kind of flesh out making that better. And I think Ashley, hopefully you can join us too, because I know you've got some good input. It's good getting you guys that were on proprietary systems over to Koha, because we can hear how it was before and use that to kind of move forward with Koha and bring some of that functionality that you've lost back into Koha and that sort of thing. So Daniel, do you have anything else to add? Sorry, I just kind of took over.
By all means, yeah, there's a lot of excitement going on. Of course, we're having a renovation, but anyway, everybody, thanks for coming. And that was great conversation. There's a lot there, a lot to go through, and lots of bugs to look at, because I love commenting on bugs. So always post them, and thanks for bringing them up. And I hope to see you guys next Tuesday. We're going to meet on the 5th, and I will send out a agenda prior to that. So add questions and bring them to the meeting. Hope to see you there. Thanks a lot.